What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here. Welcome back to another build update showcase. And today we are taking a look at one of my favorite weapons, the Swaxe. Now, in particular, I have three Swaxe builds I'm going to be bringing you today. One of them is a power Swaxe build, which is a good all-rounder build and fairly comfortable. And then we have two separate elemental builds, which we're going to be talking about because I am a huge fan of elemental Swaxe with the giant elemental explosions, the ability to fast charge it up. It has quickly become one of my favorite playstyles. Now, before we immediately jump into that, one thing I want to talk about is ideal damage output when you're playing power versus elemental. And this is something that I tested recently because I noticed on hunts I was consistently getting faster hunts with power compared to element, even when the target had good elemental matchups. And I was really confused by this because elemental Swaxe has always been a potent choice. And it turns out that we're going to see more damage from certain combos with elemental compared to power and vice versa. Let me explain. So when it comes to pumping damage with Swaxe, there are three big things that come to mind: the ZSD, the full release, and our morph combo. The morph combo is going to be pretty straightforward. We talked about this in the previous video, but after a spiral burst slash, we press right trigger to morph, we hit B once, then we hit right trigger again to morph, and then we hit Y for another spiral burst, and then we morph, and we just keep looping this. And this is great if the monster is down and you're just trying to pump out damage over an extended period of time. If you've played World before, you're obviously familiar with the ZSD. We just hold Y and B to then mount the monster and continually pump damage into it before we explode off, and then we can recover and get back into the fight. And lastly, the new addition for release slash, where after we start an elemental discharge, we can cancel it, hit right trigger, and do a big slash that will do a ton of damage in addition to giving us iframes. Now, obviously, full release slash being the newest addition to Swaxe, I was infatuated with it and constantly trying to go for full release slashes. I was doing full release slashes out of wound breaks. I was doing full release slashes pretty much constantly. And despite that, power was out damaging elemental on every hunt I was doing. And so this made me look into it. And the following test was conducted using only the weapon. And what I mean by this is we went into equipment. All of the armor was removed, the talisman was removed, and so the only thing I was looking at was weapon versus weapon, with each weapon having their respective decorations. In addition to that, in training settings, we had wounds turned off, and so we were just focused on hitting the same spot in the dummy with the same combos across both weapons. And these were the numbers I got. Now, what this basically means is that when you are trying to play elemental Swaxe, your zero-sum discharge is going to be more powerful, and it's going to have more value than if you were playing a power Swaxe. If you're playing with power Swaxe, you're going to see more value from the full release slash compared to the ZSD, and especially compared to Ellie. And then lastly, when it comes to doing your morph combo, because of the way that motion values work, the morph combo is also going to greatly benefit elemental Swaxe. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that you shouldn't do the morph combo or ZSD with power, or you shouldn't do full release with Ellie? No, not necessarily, but it does mean that there are certain combos that are going to have more value to an elemental player or more value to a power Swaxe player, and you should keep those in mind. In my particular case, I was getting slower hunts with elemental Swaxe because I kept going for the full release as opposed to leaning more heavily into the morph combo or ZSDs. And then after rectifying that, all of a sudden I was seeing like 90-second times cut off of my hunts because elemental and the motion values of elemental are going to benefit more from ZSD and morph combo as opposed to full release. So just a little interesting anecdote there to keep in mind. You can very easily test all of this stuff yourself, just coming over to the target dummy. But, you know, just something I found really interesting because I love full release. I think it's one of the coolest additions Swaxe has ever had. And, you know, I'll still use it on elemental, but now the only time I'm going to go for a full release is if my gauge is about to die and I have nothing else I can get out in time, as opposed to being like, woo, full release, baby, send it. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the builds. And first up, we'll take a look at the power Swaxe build, which I think is pretty comfortable. So for this, obviously, we're working with the Mundus Atlas. This is going to be attack all the way across the board with the exception of one sharpness. I'm pretty much always going to run one sharpness at minimum on any Ardian weapon, just because I feel like sharpness really does get gobbled up in this game. Some weapons more than others, but regardless, I don't want to fall out of white. In terms of the decos in that weapon, quick switch handicraft, razor sharp handicraft, and then a critical boost jewel. I really like razor sharp with pretty much all my weapons, just maintain that sharpness. And then quick switch obviously is a fantastic inclusion because with rapid morph, we're getting an extra 20% damage anytime we're going through that morph combo. And that's just good value with switch axe. There's no reason not to have it. On top of that, speeds it up by 30%. As for the gear, we have the Dahad Shard Helm. We have the Arc Vulcan Mail, the Guardian Arc Van Braces, the Arc Vulcan Coil, and then lastly, the Udra Mire Greaves and a Challenger Charm to round things on out. When we add our various decorations into the build, we get a setup that is pretty comfortable for switch axe. We have Wex up at 5, we have Agitator up at 5, we have Divine Blessing at 3, Recovery up at 3, Evade Extender at 3, and a singular point of burst for that extra raw that's going to be coming in. And all in all, this feels very, very comfortable. We do have haste and recovery, so we have a little bit of healing that's also built into the kit. And in my opinion, this covers pretty much all the bases that I personally like covered when I'm playing switch axe, Evade Extender being one of those main things. I think Evade Extender is so potent on switch axe, I'd almost consider it a required skill. And you know, it's one of those things that you don't leave home without it. But moving on from the power build, like I said, this one's very straightforward. If you don't want to run with the Ardian, I mean, there's a couple other choices you could do, but I haven't really looked into the other crafted switch axes because I actually really like the Ardian design. But anyway, going over to element, we have 2 elemental builds. Now, before I go through those, I'm also going to share this, and this is a breakdown of those 2 elemental builds. And what you see here is a 2-Wex Evade Extender 3 build versus a 5-Wex no Evade Extender build. Now, with those 2 builds, just to pull them up on the other side of the screen here, we have one, which is the comfy build, and this is the Wex 2 Evade Extender 3. This is going to utilize the Gore Set bonus, so it is going to pump out a little bit more attack because we're getting that bonus from Gore, so we're up at 246 compared to 238, which is what we have on the pure elemental Swaxe. But keep in mind, we are looking at 2 points of Wex compared to 5 points of Wex, so it's going to have significantly lower crit. That being said, you're going to reach the elemental cap. I'm able to hit 760 fire with both of these builds. So in terms of just pumping elemental damage, either of these is going to be fine. And even though we are losing a bit of weakness exploit, we are picking up some raw with the comfy build, which does help to offset it. So in terms of hunt times, these builds are going to be very, very similar. And it's really going to just come down to what you prefer. So to take a look at the pure LE build first, very similar to before, we're running quick switch in our element, razor sharp in our element, and then crit element in our element. I've had a lot of people say crit element's bugged, don't use it, but the thing is, it's free. It's free. So what we're doing here is getting 3 points of crit, 1 blaze, 3 points of razor sharp, 1 blaze, 3 points of quick switch, 1 blaze, and the result of that is 3 points in razor sharp, rapid morph, critical element, and fire attack. Now, despite that, if you still don't want to use crit element, you could go for power prolonger blaze. Personally, I don't really think it's that needed because regardless, we're going to be, building and spending with switch axe, especially as we go through our morph combo. So power prolonger could make your axe buff stay up a little bit longer. It could make your sword buff stay up a little bit longer. So that is an option if you're just like, no, I don't like crit element. And that's actually what I do with the comfort build because we lose out on Wex and we're not going to have as much innate crit anyway, but I wanted to put that out there. As for the Ardian weapon itself, pure attack for crafting, and then 4 element, 1 sharpness as always, because if I'm playing element, I want to max out that fire damage. As for the specific gear, we're going to go for a Gore Helm Beta, Arc Vulcan Chest, Guardian Arc Van Braces, Arc Vulcan Coil, and then the Gore Greaves Beta. When we add in our decorations, this gets us up to Wex 5, Burst 5, Divine Blessing 3, Recovery up 3, Antivirus 3, 2 points of Coalescence, and then we have a single point of Evade Window and Flinch Free and Recovery coming in from the gear. Now, obviously, this build is missing the Evade Extender, so it's going to be a little bit trickier. You're going to have to morph a lot more frequently and utilize Axe to get your evasions. You're not going to really be moving in sword mode all that much, but this is going to not only hit the elemental cap, but it's going to have a lot of crit coming into the build. Antivirus is going to give us 25%, putting us up to 30 affinity with that. And then we have a base 30 affinity on Wex anytime we're hitting weak spots, getting us up to 60. And if we're hitting wounds, that's going to go up to 80, giving us a lot of crit that's going to be pumping out on top of maximizing our elemental potential. In terms of just like you want to pump damage, this is what I would go to pump damage. And it's actually what I play primarily. Now, the comfy elemental Swaxe, we changed things up a little bit. For this, we're going to be leaning into the 4-piece gore set. So we're still going to run with the Oak Vulcan male, mainly because it's Wex 3-2, and there's not a lot of set pieces that have a 3-2 slot configuration in the chest. You know, we have a 3-1-1, we have a 3, we have a 2-1-1, a 2-2. We have a 3-2 over here, but I mean, it's bind and adaptability, you know, like who wants those skills, right? So anyway, weakness exploit 3-2, and then obviously we're just going to work with the gore pieces. And this is going to come out, which only real change up in the weapons, as I mentioned. We would run power prolonger with this since we have less innate crit. I don't think crit element will be worth it at all here. But we're going to be picking up Black Eclipse 1 here, which is going to give us a raw boost compared to the other set. And then we're going to still have burst up at level 5. Coalescence, we only need at level 2 to hit the elemental cap. And we have evade extender at 3, we have evade window at 2, and we have a free point of flinch free. And in terms of comfort, this one is definitely going to feel a lot comfier because, I mean, we have evade extender 3 and evade window 2. We are rolling far and dodging through everything. Like if you're a Souls player, this is the equivalent of like a Souls build in Monster Hunter. The rolls this thing is going to have are going to be outrageous, and it's still going to be pumping out some really good damage. Now, in terms of which of these builds are better, what's it going to come down to? Honestly, it's going to come down to your ability as a player. If you don't need access to evade extender with switch axe, if you're confident in your ability to just stay on the target and utilize, you know, your offsets and your parries to let the target come to you, you'll probably be better playing with the pure Ellie Swaxe build. If instead you really want to have access to evade extender to make sure you're getting around the target and kind of moving and looking for those opportunities, you're going to be a lot better off with the comfy elemental Swaxe build. But both of these builds are fine, and it's really just going to come down to preference for how you want to play. So with all that out of the way, I'm actually going to be running with the comfy build, and let's see what we got up to hunt. So we had a Gypsyros that is going to be up in the Wounded Hollow, so we'll go take care of that. Kind of on the weaker side in terms of monsters. I did switch over. I'm not going to do the comfy set just because this thing I don't think really, I don't need comfort to fight a Gypsyros. We'll probably do a second hunt after this as well. Oh no. That was a whiff of amazingly bad proportions. Having the worst day of his life right now. Damn, got me with the stun. What are you doing? Get over here, bro. Stop that. The thing I really like about elemental switch axe is we do one Heavensward Flurry and we're already charged up, which you don't get that with a lot of weapons. You have to, with power, you need to go through at least 2 of those. Ah, immunity, bitch! It's about to wear off, so I am going to go for the full release slash. And like I said, it still does good damage. I was doing the fake death. Go on. So when these things go into their fake death animation, if you're really quick, you can usually get off a couple of free carves out of it. Just getting ready to wake back up. No, we're not doing the flashing. How do I dodge that? I haven't gotten a single parry or offset against this guy, but it's not really been necessary. Bro's dead. Was what, a 309? Not bad for something that wastes 40 seconds playing dead on you. Alright, that one was pretty quick. Let's go ahead, just to show off the... Oh, do I fight this one again with the power switch axe? I guess I could, just to give you all an idea of damage time comparisons. Alright, Gyps Roast round 2. Electric Boogaloo. Bah. Just a back and forth. Thought he was going to hit me, but instead he just missed. Big damage. So like I said, we basically have built-in Rocksteady when we're using that. Which is why I was able to just go completely through the flash and not care about it. Oh, it's a big whiff. See, and this is why Power Prolonger is so iffy. Like, yeah, our axe buff is still up, but I mean, as you saw there, we lost access to our sword buff just because we spent that gauge. Bro's almost dead. Let me get my carve. We're probably going to still finish this a good amount faster than an elemental. So at 2:30 right now, I'll probably get up. It'll be like a 3:15 kill. Oh, God. Look at this stupid bird's recovery. That was a really quick sub 3. And what was our other kill? Let me check. What was the other kill? The other kill was a... It's complete. Where's it at? I'm trying to scroll through. 309. All right, so not bad. We were like 15 seconds slower. But like I said, that's the thing here. I mean, whether you want to go power switch X or you want to do elemental switch X, like either of them is going to be fine. You know, you're going to pump big damage. Personally, I think the reason I like elementals so much more is just that when it comes to doing our explosions, you know, when we're charged up and we're like, like, you know, that's okay. Like the little kind of cotton candy cloud that we're shooting out, but the element explosions, they just look so damn cool. So personally, I'm a bigger fan of elemental switch X. Both builds are going to pump damage. Both are very comparable of, you know, clearing out content. And, you know, we didn't even really, like, we didn't get any offsets or parries here. This could have been even faster if I had managed to parry a couple things. But regardless, that is going to wrap things up for the Swaxe. So up next, we're going to be doing Charge Blade, taking a look at LE Charge Blade, and in particular, SAD style of play as opposed to Savage Axe. So stay tuned, and I'll catch y'all then.